Hello and welcome to Learn English Road. Today, we're diving into one of the most beloved novels in English literature, Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. This touching story of the March sisters, Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy, will not only warm your heart but also help you improve your English listening and vocabulary in a natural way. So, relax, listen closely, and let's enjoy this journey together. Part 1. A Christmas Without Presents. It was Christmas, but the March sisters were not excited about gifts. In fact, there were no presents at all. Their father was away, serving as a chaplain in the Civil War, and money was very tight. Still, their small home glowed with love, even if it lacked luxury. The four sisters gathered around the fire. Each girl had her own personality, and even in that simple moment, their differences shone. Jo, tall, lively, and tomboyish, sighed loudly.
Christmas won't be Christmas without any presents.
Her words broke the quiet of the room. Meg, the eldest, gently scolded her with a frown.
It's so dreadful to be poor.
Beth, the sweet and timid sister, looked at them with soft eyes.
I don't think it's fair that some girls have so much and others have nothing at all.
And Amy, the youngest, with her golden hair and artistic flair, added in her prim voice,
At least we have father and mother and each other, but I do wish we had a little money.
The sisters talked about their situation. They longed for small luxuries, books, ribbons, sheet music, drawing pencils. But soon their mother, Marmee, entered with her calm, gentle presence, reminding them of what truly mattered.
My dear girls, we must not complain. We have each other, we have our home, and we have work to do. Let us be grateful. And remember, your father is serving his country. We must try to be brave for him.
The girls' hearts softened. They adored their mother, who always guided them with patience and love. That morning, Marmee surprised them. She asked them to give up their breakfast. Instead of eating it themselves, they carried it to a poor family living nearby, a woman with several hungry children. Though the March girls' stomachs rumbled, their spirits lifted when they saw the joy on the poor family's faces. This moment set the tone for their lives. Sacrifice, kindness, and learning that happiness does not come from what you have, but from what you give. Later that evening, the girls sat together, sewing and chatting. Each shared her hopes for the future. Meg dreamed of marrying well and living a comfortable life. Jo declared that she never wanted to marry at all. She wanted to be a great writer, famous and free. Beth only wanted her family to stay together forever. Amy wished to be a great artist and travel to Europe. Their different dreams sometimes clashed, but their love for each other was the thread that tied them together. Part 2. Growing Up, Quarrels, and Laurie. The days after Christmas carried on quietly in the March household. Though the family had little money, the girls' lives were filled with small adventures, lessons, and sometimes quarrels. Each sister faced her own weakness. Meg longed for beauty and fine things. Jo struggled with her temper. Beth hid in her shyness, and Amy worried too much about appearances. Their mother, Marmee, gently guided them, encouraging each daughter to grow into a better version of herself. One day, Meg and Jo were invited to a party. Meg wished to look beautiful, but she had only her simple dress. She borrowed jewelry from a friend, and for a moment, she was swept away by the glitter of a world richer than her own. But when she came home, Marmee reminded her softly,
Better to be loved for who you are than admired for what you wear, my dear. True beauty comes from goodness, not from silk and jewels.
Meg listened, a little embarrassed, but her mother's words stayed with her. Jo, meanwhile, had her own struggles. Her fiery temper often got her into trouble. She loved writing stories and dreamed of publishing books, but when provoked, she could speak harshly. While Meg and Jo battled with pride and temper, Beth found her happiness at home. She loved music, caring for her dolls, and playing the piano. She disliked going out into society, but she gave herself fully to her family. Amy March is the youngest of the four sisters. Amy is delicate, graceful, and very aware of appearances. She has golden hair that curls around her face, blue eyes that shine with both innocence and pride, and a soft, girlish voice that often tries to sound more grown-up than it really is. Amy loves beauty. She sketches with artistic flair, practices her handwriting carefully, and dreams of fine clothes, travel, and elegant society. At times, Amy can be vain and a little selfish. She worries about her nose being too flat, about her dresses not being fashionable enough, or about her speech sounding less refined than others. She has a habit of using big words, even when she doesn't always pronounce them correctly. This makes her both amusing and endearing. Yet beneath her vanity lies a tender heart. Amy is deeply loyal to her family, and as she grows older, her childish pride softens into grace and maturity. But the greatest change came when the girls truly befriended Laurie, the young man who lived with his wealthy grandfather. Laurie was mischievous and charming, but also lonely. Though he lived in luxury, he longed for warmth and fun, something he found in abundance at the March home. The first time Joe invited him over, he could hardly believe the joy of their household.
"You're not like any family I've ever known. You quarrel, you tease, you laugh, and yet you love each other dearly. It's wonderful."
From then on, Laurie became like a brother to the girls. He joined their games, their secret plays in the attic, and their conversations by the fire. Joe, in particular, grew close to him. They raced through the snow, shared stories, and dreamed aloud of the future. Laurie admired Joe's fearless spirit, while Joe found in Laurie a true companion, one who accepted her exactly as she was. One day, Beth gathered all her courage. She was the shyest of the March sisters, and even stepping outside alone made her heart beat fast. But this time, she had a special reason. She wanted to thank old Mr. Lawrence, their rich neighbor, for the wonderful piano he had given to the March family. The Marches did not have much money, and Beth loved music more than anything in the world. That piano was a treasure to her, like a doorway to a dream. She spent hours each day playing it with her soft, delicate hands. Still, she knew the kind gift deserved more than silent gratitude. So, with trembling fingers, she carried a pair of neatly sewn slippers she had made herself. It was the only gift she could offer. Walking up to the grand Lawrence house felt like entering another world. The tall doors, the shining windows, the polished floors, it was all so different from the March home. Beth's cheeks glowed pink with nervousness. When Mr. Lawrence appeared, she held out the slippers and spoke in a timid, almost whispering voice.
Thank you, sir, for the piano. It makes me very happy.
Her words were few, but her eyes shone with honest feeling. Mr. Lawrence, who was often thought to be a strict, lonely old man, felt something stir in his heart. No one had spoken to him like that in a long time. He looked at Beth, this quiet, gentle girl, and for the first time in years, he smiled warmly. From that day on, Mr. Lawrence treated Beth as if she were his own granddaughter. He invited her often to his house, where she could play music as much as she wished. She, in return, brought him peace and comfort with her tender presence. Their bond was simple, but it was filled with kindness and love, a friendship between a shy young girl and a grandfatherly man who both needed each other. One winter afternoon, Joe and Amy had a quarrel. It started with something small. Joe planned to go out with Meg, and Amy wanted to come along. But Joe said Amy was too young. Amy felt hurt and left out. Her face turned red, and in a sharp little voice she said Joe was being selfish. Joe, who already had a quick temper, became angry. She spoke harshly, and her words were very unkind. Amy, upset and proud, called Joe unladylike and made fun of her tomboyish ways. Joe's eyes flashed with anger. She shouted back, saying Amy cared only about pretty things and was too vain. The sisters argued louder and louder, their voices clashing like thunder. Finally, Joe turned away with a frown and said she would never forgive Amy. Amy's eyes filled with tears. She softly asked Joe to make peace, but Joe refused. Her pride was too strong, and she held on to her anger. The next day, Amy did something terrible. To get revenge, she burned Joe's storybook, the one Joe had worked on for years, full of her artistic ideas. Joe was heartbroken. She cried with rage, and her anger against Amy grew even deeper. The quarrel between Joe and Amy was still fresh. Joe's heart was burning with anger, and Amy's pride kept her from saying sorry. The air between the sisters felt heavy, cold like the winter snow. The next afternoon, Joe and Laurie decided to go skating on the frozen river. The ice sparkled under the pale sun, and their laughter carried across the empty field. Joe knew Amy wanted to join, but she still felt hurt and refused to wait for her. But Amy, stubborn and desperate to be included, tied on her skates and followed secretly. She trailed behind them, her cheeks red from the cold air, calling out softly for Joe to notice her. Joe heard the faint voice but ignored it, still holding on to her pride. Suddenly, Laurie turned his head and saw what Joe had missed. Amy was far behind, skating on a part of the river that looked smooth but was dangerously thin. His warning shout rang out,
"Joe! Look out! Amy is on the weak ice!"
In an instant, there was a sharp crack. The ice beneath Amy's feet broke open. With a terrified cry, she fell into the freezing black water. For a heart-stopping moment, Joe froze in horror. Her anger, her pride, her hurt, all vanished in one terrible second.
Amy!
Joe screamed, her voice full of fear. She dropped to her knees and slid toward the hole. The water swallowed Amy's small figure, but Joe reached out desperately, her hands raw against the ice. Laurie, quick and strong, rushed to help. Together they pulled Amy out, shivering and gasping, her face pale with shock. Joe wrapped her arms around her sister, tears streaming down her face.
Oh, Amy, I'm so sorry,
she whispered. Her pride felt foolish, tiny, meaningless compared to the thought of losing her sister forever. When they returned home, Amy was safe, warmed by blankets and love. Joe stayed close by her side, no longer angry. Later that night, Joe wept in guilt.
It's my fault. I was so angry I didn't care.
Marmee held her close and confessed something surprising.
Joe, I have struggled with anger all my life. I am not patient by nature, but I have learned to control myself. You must learn too, or you will make mistakes that hurt those you love.
Joe was shocked. To her, her mother was perfect. But realizing Marmee also battled with temper gave Joe hope that she too could improve. She had learned a painful but powerful lesson. Anger can break hearts, but forgiveness saves them. From that day, Joe promised herself she would never let her temper endanger her family again. As happy as these days were, change was already on the horizon. Childhood joys would soon give way to deeper challenges: illness, love, and loss. The March household was always full of laughter and chatter, but as the girls grew older, life began to test them more deeply. Childhood gave way to adulthood, and with it came new responsibilities, new dreams, and unexpected sorrows. Meg March, the eldest sister, was gentle, responsible, and graceful. She often dreamed of a comfortable, elegant life, yet her heart was warm and unselfish. When John Brooke, Laurie's tutor, came into their lives, no one expected love to bloom between him and Meg. John was not rich. He was serious, hard-working, and a little shy, but his kind eyes and steady character made him stand out. Unlike the charming young men Meg sometimes admired, John spoke honestly and treated her with quiet respect. He noticed her small acts of care in the March household, and she noticed his steady presence at her side. Their love grew slowly, built on friendship and trust. At first, Meg hesitated. Friends teased her, and rich relatives warned her not to marry a poor man. They told her she deserved someone wealthier, someone who could give her fine clothes and a grand house. But Meg's heart knew better. In a tender moment, John confessed his love. His words were simple. He had little to offer except his devotion and hard work, but he promised to care for her always. Meg's eyes filled with tears as she realized that true happiness was not in wealth, but in love. She chose him without doubt. When Joe discovered it, she was upset.
Married? Meg, you can't. You're too young, and we'll all be separated. It's not fair.
Meg smiled softly and replied with patience.
Joe, I shall never stop being your sister. But I must follow my heart. We must all grow up someday.
Their marriage was not without struggles. They had to live modestly, and Meg sometimes felt the pressure of managing a home with little money. Yet, through patience and affection, their bond grew stronger. Meg discovered the quiet joy of building a life together, of turning a small house into a warm home, and of facing life's burdens with love at the center. John Brooke was not the richest suitor, but he was the right one. With him, Meg found what she had always longed for. Not luxury, but true partnership and lasting love. While Meg prepared for a new life, Beth faced a darker journey. Always delicate, Beth became gravely ill after caring for a poor family with scarlet fever. The March household fell silent as her life hung in the balance. Joe sat at her bedside day and night, praying desperately.
If only I could give my strength to you, Beth. Don't leave me. Don't leave us.
Beth's gentle smile remained, even in weakness. She survived the fever, but she was never the same. Her health remained fragile, her strength fading quietly with the months. Her acceptance of her fate was heartbreaking. Beth said softly to Joe,
I'm not afraid, Joe. I think I was meant to be the one who stays behind. But promise me, you'll keep writing, and you'll live bravely for both of us.
Tears streamed down Joe's face as she promised. Amid these changes in the March household, the joys, the quarrels, the illnesses, and the quiet moments, Laurie found himself more and more drawn to Joe. At first, he thought of her as his closest friend, someone who understood his jokes, shared his adventures, and never treated him like a spoiled rich boy. But slowly, friendship grew into something deeper. Laurie admired Joe's wild energy. She was unlike any other young woman he knew. She climbed trees, raced him across fields, argued fiercely, and laughed without care. She was brave and honest, never pretending to be something she was not. When Joe spoke her mind, even if it was sharp, Laurie loved her spirit all the more. At times, he caught himself watching her quietly, while she sat by the fire scribbling stories in her notebook, her brow furrowed in concentration. He noticed the way her eyes shone when she was excited, the way her laughter filled the room with life. And in his heart, he thought, "This is the woman I want by my side." But Laurie was also afraid. Joe had always treated him like a brother, not a suitor. She teased him, argued with him, and leaned on him for support, but never gave a sign of romance. Still, his feelings grew stronger with each passing day. One spring afternoon, when the March garden was in bloom, Laurie almost spoke the words burning in his heart. Joe had been reading aloud from one of her stories, her voice full of fire and imagination. Laurie sat listening, his eyes fixed on her. When she finished, he leaned forward, his voice low and trembling with emotion.
Joe,
He said softly.
you don't know how much you mean to me.
Joe laughed, thinking he was joking as usual, and brushed the words aside. But in that moment, Laurie's heart was certain. His friendship with Joe had become love, deep and unshakable. One afternoon, he finally confessed his love.
I've loved you for years, Joe. You're my best friend, my companion, and I can't imagine my life without you. Will you marry me?
Joe's heart ached. She loved Laurie deeply, but not in the way he wanted.
No, Laurie, I can't. It wouldn't be right. We're too alike. We'd quarrel and clash, and it would ruin everything. I love you, but not as a wife should love her husband.
Laurie's face turned pale, his heart breaking.
You'll never love me then?
Not in that way. Someday you'll find someone who loves you as you deserve, and I'll always be your Joe.
It was one of the hardest moments of Joe's life. She had hurt the person dearest to her, but she knew honesty was kinder than false love. Laurie left, heartbroken. The bond between them changed forever. Part 3. Love, Illness, and Heartbreak. As Laurie went away to heal, the March family faced their greatest sorrow, Beth's slow decline. She grew weaker each day like a candle burning out. The sisters tried to keep cheerful, but Joe saw the truth. Beth grew weaker as the days went on. The house was quiet, and everyone walked softly, as if afraid of disturbing the fragile peace. Joe, who was usually so strong and full of energy, now sat silently by Beth's bedside, her heart aching with fear. One evening, the light from the lamp fell gently on Beth's pale face. She looked thinner, almost transparent, yet her eyes were calm and full of love. Joe took her hand, holding it tightly as if she could keep Beth in the world just by not letting go.
Joe,
Beth whispered in her soft, steady voice,
you mustn't waste your life being angry or proud. Promise me you'll be patient and gentle for Mother's sake and for mine.
Tears streamed down Joe's face. She bent her head close and cried,
I promise, Beth, I'll try with all my heart. I'll be better for you.
Her voice shook, filled with sorrow and determination. Beth gave a faint smile, squeezing Joe's hand with the little strength she had left.
That's all I ask.
She murmured.
You have such a big heart, Joe. Use it kindly.
In that quiet moment, Joe's fierce spirit broke open. She realized how much she loved her gentle sister, how Beth's goodness was like a light shining into everyone's life. Joe wept freely, not only from sadness but also from the deep, painful love she carried for her sister. That promise became a turning point for Joe. They guided her through her struggles and softened her wild, passionate nature. One quiet afternoon, Joe sat with Beth at the seaside, watching the waves.
Like the tide, Joe. My life is going out, but yours is still coming in. Promise me you'll be happy. Don't waste your life in grief.
Joe clung to her sister's hand, unable to answer. Not long after, Beth slipped away, gentle, peaceful, beloved. She left behind a silence that could never be filled. For Joe, it was the greatest heartbreak of all. Beth had been the heart of their home, and without her, the world felt colder. But life, as it always does, went on. Spring brought new hopes and dreams to the family. And as the weeks passed, Joe found herself changing too. She missed Beth more than words could say, yet she felt a growing strength within her. A famous writer once said, "All I know is that I know nothing," and began to study seriously, knowing that she had much to learn. She read voraciously, not just for pleasure, but to educate herself. She wrote stories for magazines and newspapers, honing her craft and earning money for the first time. She even considered publishing her own book, a collection of short stories based on her experiences growing up. Meg, too, found her path. She threw herself into her new life as a wife and mother, taking great joy in her children and the home they created together. While Amy traveled to Europe with Aunt March, where she immersed herself in art and culture, becoming more thoughtful and less concerned with her own vanity. Laurie, on the other hand, struggled with his grief over Beth. He pushed himself hard, throwing himself into his work and avoiding the one place he couldn't bear to be, Plumfield. But as time went on, he began to heal, finding solace in the most unexpected of places, the companionship of children. For now, though, Joe carried Beth's memory like a flame inside her, painful yet beautiful, guiding her toward the woman she was meant to be. Little did she know that Beth's spirit would continue to inspire and console her throughout her life, especially when the pain of her loss felt almost unbearable. Part 4. New Beginnings. While Beth's gentle soul left its mark at home, Amy was far away, studying art in Europe. At first, she was the vain, youngest sister, obsessed with elegance and appearances. But abroad, she matured. She worked hard at her painting, realizing she might never be a genius but could still create beauty. More importantly, she grew kind, wise, and thoughtful. During this time, she and Laurie, still grieving after Joe's rejection, spent more time together. Slowly, the boy who once chased Joe's wild spirit discovered a gentler happiness with Amy's grace. One day in Europe, Laurie confessed to her,
I thought my heart belonged to Joe forever. But with you, Amy, I feel peace. You steady me. You see the best in me. May I hope that you could love me too?
Amy blushed, her heart full.
I have loved you, Theodore, in my quiet way, and I think Beth would smile to see us together.
Their love grew not from fiery passion, but from companionship, respect, and tender devotion. Meanwhile, Joe, who had initially encouraged Laurie to pursue Amy, felt a pang of regret. Back home, Joe was left with grief after Beth's death and loneliness after Laurie's departure. She poured herself into writing, publishing stories that brought her some recognition. But still, she longed for something more. A purpose beyond her pen, and perhaps a love she never expected to find. It was then that she grew close to Professor Friedrich Baer, a kind, thoughtful German teacher she had met in New York. Unlike the wealthy, glamorous men society admired, Baer was humble, gentle, and wise. He respected Joe's mind, encouraged her writing, and challenged her to grow. Their bond was slow, deep, and sincere. It was a bleak November day. The wind howled and the rain poured. Joe and Professor Baer were walking home from a party together. They had both been invited, but only one umbrella existed, so they were sharing it. And as they walked, Joe realized how much the professor had come to mean to her. He wasn't the wealthiest man, and he wasn't the most handsome, but he was kind, intelligent, and funny, and he made her laugh. He also respected her as an equal, which was something she valued above all else, and as they stood there in the pouring rain, she knew that she loved him. But then something even more surprising happened. The professor stopped and turned to her.
Joe, I have nothing to offer but my hands and my heart, poor as they are. But if you could love me, I would be the happiest man alive.
Joe was stunned. She had never expected the professor to propose. She had always thought that he was too shy. But here he was, confessing his undying love for her and asking for her hand in marriage. For a moment, she didn't say anything. She thought about how much she loved him, how much she respected him, and how much she wanted to spend the rest of her life with him. She had once declared that she would never marry. She had even rejected Laurie, the love of her life, because she believed that her freedom was more important than her happiness. But with the professor, it was different. She didn't feel like she was giving up her freedom by marrying him. She felt like she was gaining a partner, a friend, a confidant. She loved him with all of her heart. And as she looked into his eyes, she saw the same love reflected back at her. She had found the love story she had always dreamed of, but never thought she would have. Her eyes filled with tears.
Yes, Fritz. With all my heart, yes.
It was not the love story she, or anyone, had expected, but it was the one that fit her soul. Part 5. Summary and Closing. In time, Meg with her children, Amy and Laurie with their baby, Joe and Bear with their dream of a school, all gathered with Marmee. The family had grown, changed, and suffered loss, but they had also gained love, wisdom, and hope. Marmee looked at her daughters with pride.
My little women, how you have grown.
Little Women, a novel by Louisa May Alcott, published in 1868. It tells the story of the March sisters, Meg, Joe, Beth, and Amy, and their coming of age in Civil War-era America. The story follows them as they navigate the challenges of growing up, including poverty, illness, and the absence of their father who is away serving as a chaplain in the war. Throughout their journey, the sisters learn valuable lessons about life, love, and loss, while also pursuing their dreams and aspirations. As the story progresses, each sister takes her own path. Meg, the eldest, desires a traditional life as a wife and mother. Joe, the tomboyish writer, yearns for independence and creative fulfillment. Beth, the shy and gentle musician, finds solace in her art and the love of her family. And Amy, the youngest, dreams of becoming a painter and seeks adventure beyond her small town. Despite their differences, the sisters are bound by their love for one another and their strong-willed mother, Marmee. They support each other through their joys and sorrows, and together they create a world of imagination and possibility within their family home. As the novel concludes, each sister finds her own path to happiness and fulfillment. Meg, through the quiet joys of family and domesticity. Jo, through her writing career and an unexpected romance with the professor. Beth, though she passes away, leaving behind a legacy of kindness and generosity. And Amy, through her art and marriage to Laurie, who was in love with Jo, but realizes that his feelings have changed. The story ends not with riches or grand success, but with the reminder that true happiness lies in family, sacrifice, and love in its many forms. Though written in the 1800s, Little Women continues to resonate with readers today because it tells the truth of growing up. It's about losing what we love, finding unexpected joys, and learning that life is bittersweet, but always beautiful when shared with those we hold dear. Thank you for joining me today on Learn English Road. I hope the story of Little Women touched your heart and also helped you practice English in a meaningful way. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, so more learners can grow with us. Keep listening, keep learning, and remember, every story brings you one step closer to fluency. See you in the next lesson.